Where or for what? For cash. For the sake of taking it out on others. For a moment of pleasure, Padre Pio's words. For beliefs. We have become stupid as humans in bodies and as former angels brought out of heaven. It is time to lift ourselves from imperfection and use this life in its entirety. However we understand it in conscience, for our own and the general good. It is necessary to try to live as it is in heaven, and we will overcome the scientific collapse, possess the wisdom and psychology of the soul, and the body surrounding the soul will show us with its sight of the senses, the true heaven. The whole spectrum of happiness will be fulfilled only in heaven. Now we can only yearn and tune the soul with the body, so that it does not decline and give up the delight and beauty that awaits it in the true home. Strive to tune the soul. Padre Pio's words. 309. Sometimes it only takes a second to change your investigations into the pleasures of life. Communication with the world should be used only in own interest. Otherwise it is impossible. This is not about classical egoism, but about being or not being. Never mind that others have their own opinions. Different thinking is the queen of the galaxies. It's the same in heaven. It is important to entertain on all levels of happiness. Otherwise, it is impossible to live and function. You buy a touch-screen cell phone, and who knows about it? And who enjoys it? Only you. But to be for others, this is also happiness and bliss, which is hard to find in the entire universe. Take advantage of the opportunities for happiness that heaven on earth sends you. The words of Padre Pio. To make you romantic and mystical. 310. If I were to answer where our world and all entities in it came from, I would answer this way. This world as we perceive it today was created by rebellious angels who once left the perfect heaven. We are also among them, but degraded already as weak and imperfect humans. They did it because they wanted to, exercising their freedom. And God does not interfere with freedom, and holds to this principle. All those who have messed something up must fix it themselves. Padre Pio's words. To make it better for them. As it turns out, it takes a very long time. An improbable story, but in my opinion true. Many saints, historians, exegetes, theologians, biblical scholars, pseudo-mystics were wrong about the origin of the world. It was not for them to know. I hint that, through their own fault, they did not know this great mystery of existence. They were tempted by manipulation rather than true knowledge, virtue, and holiness. Those who knew it, they knew it. Some were burned and the rest kept silent. Language behind the teeth. Nothing before the Pope. And so ignorance flourished for centuries. 311. Don't be afraid if you fall into ecstasy with music and dance. Not only a wise thought can change a person's whole life, but a painted picture, a photo, music, a beautiful woman, a man, or a cozy old wise man. 312. To ignite the soul, you need to use various romantic tricks. I like thinking about it intensely. The same is true of the body, its counterpart. To ignite it, you need to stimulate the senses. Otherwise it will not experience pleasure. Here and here you need passionate stimulation, movement, exaltation of thoughts and feelings, physical effort, so that at the end both body and soul meet together in ecstasy, so that they become one in rapture. God has it that way, and we are His reflection, His image. 313. The material world is an interesting and sometimes exhausting game between God and His partners, the angels, whom He invented for Himself. Since we exist as bodies, we are the product of the genetics of alien, unkempt angels, very educated in creating worlds and sustaining them at all costs. And our souls, sparks off the divine. Life is a game, Padre Pio's words, and it's all about love of any kind. To restore the luster of our souls. With technique or mystification, it cannot be done. It is necessary to look at the phenomenon of the spirit from all sides at the same time. To embrace it in order to decisively and for sure cheat the geneticists of the cosmos. Our angel friends who have surrendered to the creation of languishing and passing. There is no other way. Only with love can you deceive them and deceive them into the field. And at the same time encourage them to let off steam with their scientific experiments. Lack of love is a sign that they are still in charge and keep this world to themselves. 3:14. No one can say that he is enlightened, because this is already far from enlightenment. To Jesus it was said that he was good, and he replied, "Only God is good." 3:15. I thank you, God, for suffering, because only in the face of it do I see myself truly miserable and small. And mostly I create myself as a hero and all-knower, united with you in the light, because it is more convenient for me. But this attitude of mine is a terrible conceit. 3:16. You are the sun reflected, nevertheless you can warm many. Padre Pio's words. 3:17. We still have a little wine life left in this glass. Let's dance merrily. Let this be the last dance in this impermanent, cosmic, schizophrenic heaven. 3:18. It is forbidden to tinker with the soul by means of evil, even in the name of religion, as Islamists often do. Crowding immoral thoughts into the ego is nothing but turning the sky inside out. Human and cosmic gods are all around us. They must not be flattered, because they are evil gods who tempt you to set fire to peace and harmony. It is necessary to resist and insist on peace, goodness and comfort of coexistence. Therefore, protests of resistance are right and justified. But there are two kinds of protests. One supports bad laws, the other supports good change. We are supposed to stand for good change. The bad gods have written bad laws, dogmas. They need to be changed immediately so that we don't fall into their trap and destroy our spiritual, personal and national identity. 3:19. Hierarchy exists in the church, in the family, in the state, and in the material gods, fallen, evil ones. In the cosmos it is felt very negatively, but there in heaven, the matter of hierarchy looks quite different. It is not felt. Padre Pio's words, because perfect love abolishes all law. Love and understanding reign. However, some angels have allowed themselves to do so much and have come back from this heaven to create an alternative heaven. A cosmos, in fact, a visible hell of cosmic, energetic and social laws, despite the beauty expressed at times, which can enchant and compel to be born again in this universe. Or enchant it enough to end its false cycle of death and birth. 3:20. Yes, we have to be ourselves. Moms are like that. They would give their lives for their children, even for bad children. It is necessary to be responsible for own nest. It is necessary to admire people who defend their family from evil. Sometimes you have to give up your career for a family that needs help and love. This is beautiful and noble, opposed to the new world order that is coming. Only with self-denial, faith in God and boundless love can we win against it. 3:21. If even the worst happens to you, you can always say that it was God who stroked you. In a word, blame everything on God. He can handle it, and you won't. Padre Pio's words. The saints did that, and they did well at it. They even wished that they faced misfortune, such as scorn, humiliation, etc., because then they were closer to pure humility and sincerity. 3:22. The manipulations of the dark power, yes, are greatest at the highest levels of our being. Hearing, sight, intellect are harnessed in their deceptive procedures, and it follows down to the fingertips. That's why I believe that guessing love within ourselves is the greatest cure for lying and exploitation. Love cannot fully manipulate itself and fall into the void. True love will never give up. It survives all attacks. Love is too open, gentle, noble, eager to forgive, justify. It is sincere, preventive, and knows how to transform everything into good. Hence love, never, and I mean never, becomes a threat or manipulation. Those who think otherwise are mistaken, for there are those who consider love to be evil. The closest aspect of love to us is above all culture, beauty, and tolerance. Is there anything better than love and openness, for its love and warmth? Why love is not loved? The words of Saint Francis of Assisi, whom the Vatican hates because he does not follow his ideas. 3:23. The best thing, in my opinion, would be for the Gospels to be rewritten today. Only question is, who would do it? Jesus physically no longer exists, so one is left to agonize over understanding the old Gospels. I hope that the Spirit of truth will help everyone in the Church to understand. This knowledge which is not very practical for today's times, and will help to achieve eternal life. And after all, that's what everyone is after all. To live forever and happily in pure worlds, arranged beautifully by us, thanks to our parents God. 324. What is heaven for? For pleasure, joy. What are the worlds created on the model of heaven for? For pleasure, joy. Other reasons I do not see. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I haven't come up with anything better. 325. Why is there little happiness in this world? Because more angel humans liked competition, domination, than the source of eternal delight itself. 326. In heaven it is like the most exquisite chambers of mystical erotica. That's why Jesus compared the kingdom of heaven to the wedding feast, which means in spiritual translation, the same thing. 327. God gives himself to be stroked if you stir up feelings of love. You can stroke a child, a cat, a tree, a frog, a chicken, a pig, a dog, a man, a woman. If you feel the Creator within you, you stroke the Creator. But this has to be rearranged in the neurons and atoms of the body into a world of mystical, colorful, most wonderful fairy tale. 328. I'm sure that Jesus, while in this world, managed to explain a lot about what this truth is like. He told many people about it. The Bible recorded it, saying that the books in the world would be lacking if it came to writing down what Jesus spoke about. However, this means something. The Gospels are merely a compilation of this knowledge, often inconsistent, and for today's times, very archaic. And what was written down was subjected to filtration in the name of God. 329. Life can be difficult at times. It is necessary to recover quickly from discouragements in order to console oneself before the next frustration. It is better to look at personal life from another galaxy and to give a damn about what's going on here. Naturally, it is necessary to help others to work on love, but this area of the cosmos is really better to let go if you care about eternal life. It is necessary to escape from this galaxy and from all other galaxies as quickly as possible. But this applies only to those people who have understood true eternal existence and this flawed existence, characterized by a constant transformation of matter, repeating itself cyclically almost indefinitely, inspiring perpetual suffering. Heaven is yet to come. 330. In the pursuit of the highest ideas of existence, it is necessary to first pass through materialism and atheism. This can take a very long time, even millions of years, for each individual life. Then only possibly, if one tries to search sincerely, something valuable and different can be discovered. Otherwise, it is impossible. First elementary school, then high school diploma. Not the other way around. Padre Pio's words. Most of us still remain at the level of materialism and atheism. That is, elementary school. To put it more bluntly, we continue in the infancy of recognizing the truth about the essence of life. So it's no wonder how in our local and national backyard, it's extremely hard to get subtle knowledge of the higher realm of eternal existence. 331. The days are getting longer and the years are flying by. That's how we feel it many times. Or is there an impulsive time? How do we separate time from space? Are they together or separate? Time disappears before you can comprehend it. It disappears before you can say now. Time dissolves in intelligence. Time does not exist. If you experience something, it happens neither in space nor in time, but in the imagination of the inner soul. Space and time are the moment you don't understand, but you want to live it. Time is the name that organizes the logic of the mind. For higher consciousness, he does not exist in human terms. 332. In this world, every kind of animate or inanimate matter has scraps of intelligence, but that doesn't mean it has a soul. The soul is a completely different world. The soul does not need intelligence, thinking. Intelligence would limit love and fullness of happiness. Intelligence is an effect, not a cause. We like intelligence and beat ourselves up about it. But that's not what the pursuit of eternal life is about. So nature, animals and humans as matter have intelligence. The world constructed by fallen angels, with a soul has serious problems. because these constructors did not know how to create it. Only God has this ability. That's why they fight for it so much. 333. Nature is the work of angels, what they came down from heaven, so it is not perfect. They wanted to create a soul like themselves. They worked on it, but they couldn't. Only God is able to create a soul, and they created animals, different mutations of them, worms that bite and kill each other. They created a fatal food chain, so that one has to eat the other. You could say, the very misfire, with this intelligence. All that we see has no soul, only man has souls, the words of Padre Pio. The rest is pure intelligence mixed with the sensitivity of thinking and the sensitivity of the psyche, behaving quite similarly to the human body and the human psyche, the ego. Yes, all of this nature can transform into higher beings, even reach the state of the soul, if we help it. There is only one way for this to happen. We have to love the world, animals and everything, and God will make and transform intelligence into soul at the end. It's up to us how we love the world, animals, how we adore and divinize it. If we love animals very much, we will see them in heaven. Padre Pio's words. 334. In my opinion, knowledge does not come. Knowledge is simply discovered. We learn to acquire it. It is unchanging in the original of eternal life. In the private heavens, yes, it is characterized by variability, depending on time and space, depending on the perception of comprehension and opening of the mind. In these cosmic civilizations, the forms of its perception and discovery change. But in God, in His heavenly world, everything is complete and perfect, manifest fullness. In the world we are in now, everything is missing knowledge. We must discover it, even though it has long been discovered. It remains a question of the quality of the body. The human body understands very little. 335. To live inside someone's soul even for a moment, to see its images and spaces, is a delight flowing through streams of worship. This is what heaven is all about for us, among others. This is one aspect of the delight of seeing and feeling. There is no discouragement or displacement by another soul. On the contrary, but on earth there are very serious problems with this, because we can't see the soul. 336. With faith in God we have serious problems. Only knowledge and transmission from others teaches us information about Him. The matter for billions of years has become so complicated in space, thanks to civilizations what push God out of consciousness, that it has come to the point of reducing genetics so that disbelief or illusion is possible throughout space. Prohibition of seeing, prohibition of believing, prohibition of speaking. These are empirical facts. Voluntarily no one wants to think about God, and has been since childhood. The promotion of belief in God proves just that we know nothing, and I mean nothing, about Him. Besides, no one has seen God in space and never will, because it is not His realm, although His begotten children in it uncomfortably, and as if by accident of scientific unintelligent ringer, find themselves. 337. Those who once came out of heaven, and we include ourselves among them, support with great commitment, whether emotionally, scientifically, intellectually, artistically, this unfortunate genetic prohibition against thinking about God, because we think it's better to renounce our parents, so that they don't bother us with their plans, ideas, happiness. Now the question, however, was this idea successful? As we can see, rather not. We live in a graveyard and nothing really succeeds for us, despite freedom, invention, humor and panache. Often we can't even think of the words. We all feel strangely wronged and incomplete. We live in our infancy, Padre Pio's words. Even sexual pleasure takes a few minutes, and we like it so much. It can be assumed that someone here has messed up life, messed up the chemistry, the atoms, photons, quarks, which are destroying us and destroying themselves. To humans it seems that the atom is eternal energy. This is a serious misuse of science. We have lived too short a life. The universe has existed too short a time to conclude this. And the theory is merely blind faith. So we have problems believing in the atom, science, and believing in God. When will we reach certainty? Only on the other side, when the curtain on the mysteries falls. Is that for all in exchange for one life? Oh no. It goes on almost indefinitely, Padre Pio's words. If we consciously give up our own pride, it will happen fairly quickly. 338. God does not control anyone, absolutely. We are controlled by donors, geneticists, fated angels, philosophers, psychoscientists, creators of our bodies. They control if only through the composition of water and the composition of air. Not to mention the glands, energy points of the body, the pineal gland, the brain, the intellect, emotions and other senses, blood, various body fluids, DNA, RNA, etc. Inspirations are also controlled. Inspirations, good or bad, they can do this. And besides, God through good angels, saints, tries to help us, because he still remembers that both good and bad, those controlling, are his children. He waits for one and the other, but the more scientific ones, the bad ones, do not let themselves be broken and do not forgive. Padre Pio's words, 339. Even in songs they sing, I love above all life. What does this mean? What can this love be, that even its life is able to sacrifice its whole life? It must be extremely devoted, noble, pure and beautiful. 340. In fact, everything that is separated is at the same time a unity. Otherwise it would scatter in disorder and wander without logic. In fact, everything is an eye, a vision. Seeing is hearing, touching, experiencing, enjoying. I am talking about the soul. The soul is vision and has everything in one point through which it perceives existence. The closest term for this is seeing. The material world is eyes. It sees everything, feels everything, tastes everything. Without seeing, heaven can never be experienced. Beauty is primarily seeing and feeling. The soul is a marvelous entity, even if it still lives in the dense matter of the fallen cosmos. Heaven must first of all be seen, Padre Pio's words. 341. Where did angels, demons, gods, aliens, humans, nature and animals come from? Where did the universe come from, in this form of transformation and pathology of killing? So, as I have said many times before, all these beings that exist in the cosmos are children of God, who once came out of heaven and set up their personal heavens, galaxies, earths, planets on which they exist today. And as it turns out, they now have to wait for other children of light to wise up and be able to return to the original life outside their cosmos. Because things are going very badly in these private heavens. They created their heavens based on the memory and imagination they had in their original life. Heaven. Of course, they modeled themselves on the spiritual universe. But they could not replicate the eternity and beauty of heaven. That's why it is what it is. Selfishness and the struggle for pleasure, however we understand it, because there was a lack of potential and perpetual motion for everything designed by those angels we count ourselves among. Fortunately, we are no longer afraid to long for the real heaven. We used to be systemically and spiritually forbidden from these longings. We are already in a good position as eternal souls. We know that we are not just an external body. And this is great knowledge. 342. Angels love you so intensely and passionately, even kneel before you, that sometimes you have to stop thinking, praying, because of this, to transform into pure delight with them. Well, yes, because what would it look like when you are with someone, and you are busy with something else? Simple. Even in the heavenly way, you have to fly away into the delight of thoughtlessness, into the abiding worship. 343. I can't express anything. Too painful a vessel of time. The darkness of light has overwhelmed reason. Nothing can be seen and nothing can be heard. Feeling has nothing to cling to, nothing to embrace. The world has complicated me, boiled my soul in darkness, vaporized hope. And what next, Lord? 344. It's not the time I need to live my life, but to forget it. 345. The drama of good involves trying to disenchant evil. 346. The philosophy of looking at the creative aspects of the soul. How wonderful. It helps, but it is not everything. 347. Where there is a manifestation of power, domination, superiority of, for example, priests over the common man. This is the attitude of a fallen angel, Anyway, everyone understands this. Jesus became a brother to each of us. Yes, and priests are nothing more than brothers, and such they should always remain. Priests are important because they perform salvific functions. They help people to deepen the soul's relationship with God. No other function they have. Actually, if an ordinary person does the same, without theological education and ordination, he is also a priest. It is worth realizing this. Once Padre Pio said to me, "You are also a priest. So too all those who have a push for God." 348. In my opinion, the Church should return to the medieval mystical spirit. Mysticism is primarily the relationship of the soul with God, and the Middle Ages were characterized by this. Church is not only priests, pope, temple buildings. The Church is the way to God, our parent, the ultimate goal of the soul's journey through the cosmos. The Church is no authority or a wrongly created system of hierarchy. Where there is power, there is pride, and pride. We know what it means and who supports it, and it is supported by the entire fallen cosmos with fallen angels. What created these works of art galaxies? 349. God the Father Mom is not the mom of power, politics, or religion. He is simply a good, loving being for all the perfect beings he has created. He desires to have them with him in heaven. As we know, some of the angels once left heaven. Since then, we have been wandering without order and composition throughout the material universe, until someone enlightens us in time and space, and we understand where our true home is. Just as today we create integrated circuits, processors, in the past we or others created material systems of solar systems, galaxies, and so on. Practically, this is still happening today. But as already humans, we have no insight into these activities. A solar system versus a galaxy, actually it's almost the same thing, only that the galaxy is of great size. On the micro and macro scale, the energy and material basis is the same. The issue of various clothes overlays on the nuclei of energy. As a result, formed shapes and visual forms in the different systems of perception of our inner and outer consciousness. Because every world is created from consciousness. 350. Is love the oblivion of everything? It seems so. Perdition, paralysis, inertia, temporary loss of human consciousness. This is what the mystics had. St. John of the Cross couldn't even remember his name or where he lived. He talks about it in his works. This is the conclusion. When we feel too practical and concrete, it's as if we are missing something of the wonderful atmosphere of love. Even in the common saying we hear, love is blind. In this state, nothing matters but infatuation, a kind of ecstasy. Everything becomes unimportant except this rapture of the soul. And then again, the reality of fallen heaven. Too bad. But we can fix all this in this life and after death. Work on this is going on all the time. There are many angels, diplomats, and navigators of this happy idea. May we follow it. 351. Air can't be seen, but it can kill like any other thing. I won't mention invisible poisons. The same is true of emotions and desires, which are actually the same thing. You can't see them. We have them inside ourselves. But they can strike outward and turn the world upside down, just like a hurricane does. 352. You are a needle in the haystack of the world, a kind soul, the sweetest on the holiday. No one will find you. There is too much of this hay here. Who will dig you out of these millions of blades? Let yourself be fooled. Love the ideal and speak nonsense from happiness. Adore ignorance, faith, please. And you will become a wise soul, full of distance from the horizons of events. 353. In the current situation of aggressive intelligence, it seems that ignorance is more important than knowledge. Knowledge stiffens, pushes us into a tight corset of shapes, concepts, theories, numbers, and elements. It almost always results in boastfulness, certainty, arrogance, and pride. Ignorance makes you humble and adore all the possibilities of delightful ignorance and omniscience. Ignorance is as light as a feather. Knowledge sets a tone of solemnity and crushes you to the earth with the extravagance of gravity and currency. Sometimes a theory or practice of knowledge, it will work. but in a moment it is overturned by something more modern. And what remains is a charmingly funny ignorance. You remain a child prodigy full of ignorance, but you have fun without any restrictions as a toddler. And after all, life is really about fun, spontaneous exploration, a pleasant feeling through a journey through yourself to beyond yourself. Salvation otherwise means having fun, however you understand it. In heaven, no harm done. In not heaven earth, it is different. To be a normal person and strive for the ideal at the same time, it is necessary to be a child playing carefree, to the measure of the freedom of the senses and the needs of the soul. Therefore it is said, the measure of love is love without measure. If you do not become as these children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. 354. Let's think about it so honestly, seeing the histories of the world, different civilizations. How did they end, and what was the reason? The end of civilizations has always resulted in increased intellect and increased progress. Note, science, technology, even philosophy and religions are the product of ignorance of life. Added to this is the cleverness of coping with the ire of these psycho-existential problems. Science and knowledge badly correlated with needs only cause conflicts and wars. Whatever science discovers and constructs, ostensibly for our convenience, automatically condemns us to more clashes with reality. Is there a way out of this? To me it seems rather not. Momentarily, individually, it will work. But in the long run it becomes a danger, because everything here breaks down and destroys. Padre Pio's words. Not only technology, art, but even knowledge corrodes. Such a bizarre system of being here. Jesus felt this perfectly, so he proposed to look for another life, another treasure, where rust does not destroy it and thieves do not steal it. 355. So far in all internal, external, poorly organized dimensions, that is in the galaxies, so also on our Earth, there is competitiveness and unhealthy competition in the struggle for energies, luxury and survival. This is how this utopian world was created by the presidents of angels, as an expression of their pride, power, and intelligence. But as you can see, the Creator's game has ended badly. It's worse than bad. Suffering operates everywhere and at every turn. In no case was this world created by God. It's worth knowing that. God created only heaven and the angels, that is, all the angelic souls, Padre Pio's words, and that later some left heaven for the worlds of their material concepts. That is another matter. The basis of which was freedom and gazing at their beautiful greatness. For the creation of the material world, yes, the divine power was used, with which God equipped all angelic souls, giving them their power. We are the very angels. What went away into the distance? But as you can see from the fruits, clearly something did not work out. There was a lack of harmony and constant competition, literally for everything. It is not comfortable in this world. However, it is necessary to somehow get through it and dream, despite the inconveniences of eternal existence. We are left with the best tool in this matter, faith in God, and doing good that at least reminds and directs us to eternal joy. The task before us is quite breakneck, since ego programs do not allow us to yearn for ideals or the virtues of love. Nature is ruthless and possessive, set on living through destruction, death. We must overcome it every day. Perfect ourselves, or at least think about it, to resist the greatest scientists of the cosmos, so-called in Catholicism, the Satanists, who have cleverly trapped us in the matter they have corrupted. 356. All senses that give life in this world will be rehabilitated and added to them enchanting sons of divine romance and poetry. The senses for today's material time lack the permanence of sensation. We know this from experience, if only from sexual pleasure, or taste or sight. The body lacks eternity like the earth lacks water in a drought. There is romantic emptiness, no play, no release of own raptures to the highest realms of pleasure. The everydayness of absolute conditional and unconditional restrictions makes us flatten the most beautiful needs of the soul, expressed also in part through the senses of the body. It seems, though not only, that only artists feel this bubbling heat of inner life. Everyone, however, should become an artist of God, to feel paradise in all of oneself, to the extent of knowing and painting own life with goodness and love. 357. Jesus revealed himself as the light and accused the other God there of deceiving people. He called his servants whitewashed tombs, a tribe of vipers, etc. I am convinced that his idea will exist until the end of this earth, because what else can you give in return? Jesus spoke of a loving God, that we are all his children, that he loves us, that he has prepared palaces in heaven for everyone to live in. What could be more beautiful to say? He encouraged us to return to the true God, nothing more, nothing less, as to such a spiritual church. What could be better? No one has set such a great example of love of neighbor as Jesus, the founder of this friendly, loving, and merciful social movement. It is known, manipulation is and has been a lot, but the commandments of love of God and neighbor survived, despite the fact that in the name of such ideals were once murdered. Today there is great moral progress in this area, and the church calls more for peace than for war. I think we can see that. That's right, some people still need temples, others no longer, especially since Jesus didn't build a single one. Padre Pio's words, 358. In my reflections, I come to the conclusion that only love can be good, and only love is the source of happiness. Love is the sun soul of our basis of existence. That is why we crave it, because it is the deepest, tenderest, and most sensitive point in us. From this point is created the fragrance of life that delights. Jesus came to this on his own and said it in the words, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Therefore, outside of love there is rather no truth. It comes down to the fact that it is love that is the truth, painting our lives at the root, and at the very top, the word remains, "You shall know," and that implies a time and a way to refine that love for some strange reason. But so it is. On the road sometimes the dust arises and a little suffocates the breath, and because love can be patient and gracious, it will endure some dust as well. In the end, it will shake off it, and all that remains is bliss. From the various forms of love, it is necessary to wish everyone the richness of love. It is indifferent to what form it takes to express itself and smell around. All are allowed, saturated with love. They cease to be ordinary forms, and they will never hurt again. But in a fallen cosmos, this love can be different. Therefore, you need to reach for ideals, which in science, philosophy, and cosmology are difficult to find. 359. There have been many civilizations on this planet in the past, even they were higher than ours, Padre Pio's words. Each of them, although they totally wandered in their search for the meaning and purpose of life, they still succeeded in something. They worshipped various great spirits, gods. In the end, they created the one, the only God, and both the Old and New Testaments refer to this God. Those civilizations felt something, that just might be the one. But Christianity went further. It created, in addition to the one Father, the two gods, and then the Holy Trinity. And so far it is what it is. But in all honesty, no one knows what God is, because in the material cosmos by no one and never seen, everything is conjecture and anthropomorphisms. To look for God in oneself, yes, is interesting, but free will evidently often separates us from him, and to find God's will and live according to it is not the best either, because we would feel prisoners of someone else's will. And there is a problem to solve. How to find your parent? Probably love unions know something about this. 360. There are no ideals because the ideal takes away freedom. Freedom is an ideal without an ideal. Anyone who is free cannot be ideal. That's why some saints say that even in heaven, delicate disagreements can happen. It is therefore necessary to strive endlessly for perfection. Do not lose. 361. If someone cares to recognize his existence first, he goes crazy. Then he comes to the conclusion that madness alone is not enough. So he tries to calm himself. In this he sees a method, and he notices that tranquility gives him maximum spiritual turnover. He begins to read interesting books, searches in religions, pays attention to his senses, and recognizes the power of the mind. He tries philosophy, constructive thinking. He taps into the limitlessness of phenomena. He notices the power of the spirit at every level. He analyzes feeling for what it is. He unravels joy where it comes from and why it exists at all. Amazing inspirations and analyses begin to fall into his hands. He is puzzled by their origin. Unusual solutions appear. Enchanted with himself, with his abilities, he notices that he can think whole sets of events and reflections at once. What will happen next? It's hard to say. I think the real mystics can answer this question. 362. The world begins with dreams and desires. From dreams one must begin. If there are dreams, there is love. There is desire and perspective. Then you can create markets and income based on hard honesty that will not bow to irresponsible people. Love, responsibility, and dreams in economics are paramount. Then misunderstandings, lies, and abuses, so dangerous to the good functioning of the economy, are avoided. Everyone living in such a state should understand this perfectly and contribute to the search for the best economic solutions to provide everyone with housing, bread, clothing, and spiritual comfort. Faith says that mountains move mountains. Dreams come true. 363. If we are not interested in the world of the soul, crises will await us, because the mind abhors emptiness, Padre Pio's words, and human knowledge of the material worlds is scarce, so it does not satisfy our body. The mind of the body is agitating, arguing with itself. It conflicts with questions about itself. The soul, on the other hand, opens up unknown areas beyond reason. The soul opens the feeling that desires happiness and the fulfillment of the innermost dreams. And such royal dreams regulate inquiry, concepts, and words, making honey for the body. A person begins to be at ease. Therefore, it is necessary to embrace own soul first, and the body and reason will benefit greatly from this. 364. I don't understand the world. I don't understand my body. I don't understand my soul. I don't understand anything. And what should I do in such a situation? I will try to reject understanding, and maybe I will understand at least something a little. And if not, I'll repeat it a few times. Maybe something will help, and maybe I'll hear an unfamiliar melody, one I will delight. Then I do not understand will not have the slightest meaning. 365. There is a problem with love, because not everyone on earth feels the way we do. And because of this, you have to restrain yourself from loving again and again. But that doesn't mean you don't love. This dilemma occurs only in earthly worlds. Angels no longer have these problems, because they do not look at the level of knowledge, but into the heart throbbing with pure heavenly madness. Their knowledge is open. Only the heart tempts desires, wants, everyone to beautiful feelings and exploring artistic paradisiacal worlds. There are no more in-laws, wives, children. All are yours. All heaven is yours to enjoy. Padre Pio's words. 366. There are beautiful fairy tales in every corner of the universe. From somewhere, it is already known that life is a fairy tale experience. Sometimes someone writes a bad script, and then it's bitter. But imaginative poets only write thrilling adventures. Maybe you want, fairy tale traveler, to experience your world even more wonderfully. Make up your mind and write your own poetic fairy tale. Fall in love with love. As a reward, you will receive a great book, great adventures. Padre Pio's words. Love from such a fairy tale will never let you down. Even if there was a storm raging around, do not hold back fairy tale love. Only it will make you grow wings and feel the taste of flying. To the beat of your favorite music, you will soar far. Do you think you know what this can mean for you? Only one thing, fairy tale flight. I stay with you, wonderful facets. A beautiful morning wakes up from them, I know where you are. I hear words sung with the scent of apple trees anointed with spring. The power of spirit rises in them. When the sun rises, with every knee bend, with every look I greet you. In the daytime, with every image of memories, I am before you with every dream. With a sigh I melt into your love, and when evening comes, when the streets empty among the golden fields, I go with you to the dark night when the angels fly to the groves of rest. I go to sleep in their company, to greet you again in the morning among the honey of heavenly caresses. 367. No matter whose capital, whose property, whose assets, be that as it may, all architecture and private, cosmic property ultimately belongs to God, not to angelic man, even if this reality was created and copied by others. At the end of the day, it was God who gave his consciousness to everyone to create things and cosmos. He lent his energy, and that it was later corrupted, that's another matter. Each person leases everything from God, but he does not resent it, absolutely. And he does not give anyone the feeling that it is not theirs. Everyone can say, "This is mine." He only worries about the fact that his children have fallen into a trap because of him, which results in disease and death in the cosmos. And this only worries him. Now God is wondering what to do to preserve the freedom of the beings he created, while attracting them to a comfortable, eternal existence. And that, in our lives, is what it's really all about. 368. Since we have existed, it is possible to own so-called private property. The first thing is that we possess a sense of ourselves first, which is not at all possible without God. We use private consciousness, private body, and private pleasures at every moment, and no one has to know anything about it. Complete independence and freedom. This is already a lot, and it doesn't bother anyone. Neither does God. He doesn't even want to know what we do, our business. Just as we don't care what pleasures God takes or what he does to himself privately. His business, as long as privacy doesn't become a reason to pinch others. This is often a small problem in the fallen civilizations of the cosmos. In order not to be unpleasant with privacy, tolerant love and understanding of the needs of others is still needed. Otherwise, it is impossible to function here. Fighting, the big ego that characterizes us, is an archaism of a fraction of our consciousness, and too primitive a tool to emphasize own privacy. God is different, and that's not how he created us. Unfortunately, there were those who tried to correct us, and it came out as it did in genetics. A crack in consciousness was created, so everything can be had personally. But the point is not to get lost in these possessions, and not to cause wars because of them. Our brains are too small to grasp the ideal of perfection. That's why Jesus spoke so beautifully about self-denial in this cosmos. Otherwise, it will be bad with our lives. 369. Sometimes it is so that not 2 seconds pass, and you forget the previous thought for amen. Sclerosis. Even worse, one would like to say. It teaches humility. Oh, it teaches. 370. Spiritual creativity is to be guided by the teachings of the heart in technical and economic needs. That is, to have constant attention directed to a life of timeless, beautiful, glorifying goodness. Gentleness and culture prepare the human heart for noble goals, but always in relation to the ethics of pleasure of the heart. Soft heart is the spirit of understanding, logic, and true compromise in the name of love. It is a free exchange of deeds and words of life, a profession in giving more than taking. Therefore, in all material endeavors, the most important thing is always the spiritual good, the good of the soul. And if we keep this in mind while at rest or in business, then the possession and production of material goods is not a hindrance in any way, but rather a great good that God has trusted. But we know how it is with us. Much understanding of these problems awaits us. 371. God, for you I drink, for you I eat and smoke, for you I play, and for you I live. What more do I need? I know you may not care, but I like you and I love to think about you. And you accept it because you like me too. Whether you eat or drink or whatever else you do to the glory of God. Someday everything will change, and the smoke from God's cigarette will not be harmful. And God's alcohol will not get us drunk on amen, but will stimulate us to love even more. It's cool in heaven. 372. Countries are dying, systems are crumbling, and people seem to be getting worse. That's the impression one gets at times. Why? Precisely because we have lost our sense of the value of love. We do not care about the fate of everyone, but only about our own. This is not enough to live in symbiosis. One does not look hard enough for the spiritual element. one has stopped dreaming of higher pleasures beyond time, of eternal life. So we fall to earth too mundane without flair and frenzy of spiritual happiness. 373. So far, a relatively small part of society considers love as a path to liberation and normalization. A flourishing civilization can only be led if everyone takes to spiritual work, recognizing their loving heart. A remarkably simple thing, but somewhat through worries and aggressive attitudes, forgotten. No state system can stand without love. We know this from history. A democratic or non-democratic dictatorship will be born. Unhappiness for the people. 374. Interior reform involves constantly correcting own attitudes, but reform alone will also accomplish nothing if it is based on mere words and rules without heart. Artificial holiness will sooner or later lead to neurosis. And the goodness of God, after all, desires health and comfort for all. So prayers are not God's will if they lead to sickness. Jesus taught only one short prayer to our parents. All others are less important. There is another divine prayer to Jesus' mom, and one can stop there. Each of us can spiritually and affectionately speak to our parents in our own way, if we feel the need to do so. It is always fun to talk with dear parents, and they will still help in difficulties. 375. Any way you look at it, we are and live in a kind of cosmic bubble. We can call this bubble the heaven in which we rejoice, stroke, and sing songs. But if you get a good sneak peek at life, it's not all perfect. There are prisons, hard work, conflicts, love troubles, fatigue, etc. And what can we poor people do about it? We don't know where we are coming from and where we are going. But what the hell? When we have a push towards the good, it will surely be nice, and in these distorted material heavens. Someday you have to sit down and think about the eternal cosmos. It will certainly be much better there. Joy and fun will bring us closer to it spiritually, not suffering, and reflecting on its unnecessary existence will help us diagnose what is really at stake and where we should direct the soul's gaze to achieve our longings and transcendental dreams. 376. God is artistically delicate. How little warm, loving thoughts can change even his decisions. Love is not rigid by any means. One can do anything with it. 377. In space life, it is essential to go beyond self-love. This is the crux of the matter. But how few people are able to peel off at least a little from their mental shell so as not to endanger others. To be happy, it is necessary to sometimes abandon happiness for a while. 378. When it comes to education, universities should be at a high and wise level of teaching, in which the knowledge of love and the acquisition of good character are also taught. Educate individuals who are useful to society as a whole. They should teach methods for eliminating selfishness, spreading respect for wisdom and brotherly love between people. It should be teaching the understanding of the most important direction of civilization development, which is to know the heavenly civilizations and to constantly raise happiness on earth. Seemingly simple, but 379. Democracy, capitalism, socialism, or even some other system that does not respect comprehensive and universal spiritual teachings leads directly to the breakdown of social sensitivity and love. It is true that at present, in the generation of human and spiritual values, state systems have a small share, but it is possible for this to happen through a wise will, in which the most intelligent and cordial group of people in power will make others well aware that comprehensive development, including in the field of mysticism, is necessary for every human being. 380. How much is spent on armaments that must be quickly destroyed as technologies become obsolete? One dreads to think. Is this the wonderful system in which thousands of adults and children starve to death every year? In such a situation we stop wanting, even dreaming. But let's not give up. We need to revolutionize the world with a different system, managing human physical and spiritual forces. Such a system, where good managerial will and economics in the hands of hardy specialists would ensure that everyone lives a decent life, and even a rich one. It is achievable. necessary for the development of the soul to happen quickly. Not only that, it is possible even without money. Already it is getting louder and louder about it. Biorobotization will give prosperity to all. But first there must be love sown wherever and however. Other planetary systems by other stars live off robots. It's a little lighter for them. Asylum of humanism. Even the most powerful force of the human mind is sometimes offended by the colorlessness of humanism. Total unity is pierced by the arrows of non-fiction, nature. Hence so little emerging energy of crowned victorious humanism. The world is a simple recitation of reflections to concrete action by the force of anthropological revelations of the value of all imperfect reality. Thus, the maturity of criticism in any arrangement of mental sensations indicates the natural processes accomplishing the unification of bondage of the world with the freedom of heaven. 381. It can be said this way: a man without personal culture is without value and wastes his highest aspirations. A man without culture does not recognize sacrifice, selflessness, and humility. Besides, culture also expresses in open-mindedness and open-heartedness. Culture is a positive philosophy of thinking. A man with lofty, artistic concepts of life is an exponent of the idea of goodness. He will not allow himself to close himself in anything. Nevertheless, when he feels evil, he tries not to participate in it. This is the basic culture. The road from here to heaven begins with materialism and culture. Padre Pio's words, 382. To believe in God requires a lot of humility, because he, through science, is unknowable, and this is the pain of reason. Understanding the spiritual life does not happen immediately. It is a multi-year process. It is better for it to be accomplished on the basis of lightness, without burdens, or the use of radicals. The intellectual search must be calm, but sometimes fierce, but only to oneself. There is no other way towards the spirit. Like the mind and heart, it is easy to go astray by sticking to reason alone. The same is true when material beauty alone turns our heads. Material experience, however, is the first stage to knowing the royal life beyond time and space, in human sense and experience. From concern for being in material objects, one moves on to concern for gaining character and love. Excellence comes from culture, not artificial sanctity. If something is done with a passion for the spirituality of the highest ideas, even poison will not hurt. Spirit will heal everything, turn pesticides into health power, and schematized food into vitamins. It takes a commitment to love to everyone equally, and love for God. 383. We are to live as kings and queens, everyone. It's not about running around like a man possessed and spreading the germs of hatred, intolerance, causing strife. A king cannot do such things. He is a king for himself first and foremost, and at the same time the same for everyone. The behavior of the queen and the king is wonderful, fabulous, gentle, modest in words, sweet. No one will feel unpleasantness from them. This is how we are supposed to be, and in the store, at the post office window, and in organic farming. The king works, but his work is royal, beautiful. It does not seem burdensome to always remain queen and king in more difficult moments. It's better to bite your tongue or take lemon balm than to get angry and cause confusion and nerves. Where the shouting comes in, love evacuates from that place, and inner kingship weakens from second to second. 384. None of us appreciates nature, and she relentlessly announces the appearance of the Lady of Transience. The beginning and end of time for the human body appears and disappears. But it is necessary not to be too concerned about this. This is the order of things in this galactic system. In the last moments it is sweet anyway, no pain is felt. Everyone begins to see beautiful things, including their eternal travel partner, the guardian angel. It is necessary not to run away from the thought of death, even when one is very young. This option ennobles and causes a better use of the potential of life for spreading the knowledge of eternal amusements. After all, there is entertainment in heaven, just like here. Everything exists, only in a more perfect way, always beautiful and creatively changing its areas of delight, without any suffering or obligation to work. There one does not work, but occupies oneself with anything for the joy of existence. Of course, the point is not to think only about the end of life. The point is to have a humble awareness of it, and this helps to achieve the most heartfelt thoughts, linked to dreams that transcend the limitations of time and effort. 385. The soul is a traveler and explorer of spiritual worlds, so it should not be boring. But it happens differently. When one ceases to be curious about the depths, frustration begins from the inadequacies of reality, in which love is buried in the corners. It is nevertheless pleasant to talk to travelers. They never cease to make us curious about their discoveries. In heaven you can travel anywhere. All of heaven is at your disposal. Padre Pio's words. 386. The great philosopher Jesus summarized all his lectures to one sentence: love your neighbor as yourself. A beautiful sentence. Which philosopher came up with something like that? The heart of culture, development, happiness, peace, sustainable progress of civilization, well, and flowing from love alone caresses life. You only need to remember this one most important sentence, and the whole world will change. And you don't need any special vestments, liturgy, and holiness for that. 387. Happiness should be free and function beyond all measures of measurement, because happiness is pure love, and its measure is measureless. The measure of love is love without measure. Padre Pio's words. 388. Let us strive to rejoice constantly. Let's find even the smallest reason to do so. In this way, we rub our noses in the face of bad genes and corrupted light. We are together a puzzle next to each other in one puzzle. Your joy can be my joy and my joy can be yours. The exchanges of pleasure are unlimited by anything. The edges of the puzzle touch each other with subtle senses of feeling to hold each other together as a whole. Spiritual consciousness connection is a healing and peace-producing force. Let's paint pictures of joy at any time and in any place. Let's start, and the larks will return. That's why Padre Pio kept telling me at talks to love everyone equally. 389. Yes, unity exists in the cosmos, but ragged terribly. That's why everyone silently believes that we will succeed, at least in part, in preserving it. They believe that we will return to the bosom of the motherland. Everyone is waiting for the truth about the backstory of the odyssey of life to be revealed. When the highest galactic authority yields, then we will already be home. When? Here is the conundrum question. When they allow us to save ourselves freely, everything will go rather quickly. But they still forbid us to save ourselves. They falsify reality, telling us to do whatever we want, because heaven is here and now in matter. And this, after all, is a gigantic untruth. That's why with salvation we're going awry, intellectually inadequate. A spurt of nobility is needed, a spurt of enlightened mind and heart. 390. Salvation depends on only one thing, on a change of consciousness. And this is where the stairs begin. To the eternal, original heaven, the mystical alchemy of heaven. 391. You don't even need to read much to get to the essence of life. The soul leads by itself. You just need to massage its muscles that cause contraction, and then you can chase forward. Such as love, crazy, and how boundless with charms. Tales of the heart. Happiness is produced by ourselves, avoiding rasps and anxieties as much as possible. The cosmos is a constant rasp, but in a pure heart there is no rasp. 392. Family marriages is a human invention, Padre Pio's words. But it is what it is, here not heaven. Cosmic family, genes, imperfect body, sweat, pain, death of parents and children. 393. It is necessary to do things in such a way that our inner mystic does not cool down, and a cynic does not arise from it. This is the painting of life. Many, while wandering through the various kolkhozes of planets in the universe, have unfortunately cooled off. It is necessary for them to reignite and get to know the true God, the one from life and happiness. 394. Mainly Christians, followers of God, destroyed the achievements of powerful previous civilizations that were higher than the present one. Padre Pio's words. They burned the vast and valuable knowledge from the Alexandrian library, where the knowledge in it went back 100,000 years. 95% of the knowledge was burned. This is the progress of Christianity. They set us back several thousand years in spiritual and technical development. Nothing good. Jesus warned against pride and power, but they did not listen. Power, cardinal purple, papal, priesthood invented, modeled after the pharaohs, stripped us of love and luminous progressive, salutary thought. And what to think about it? The Vatican, a source of happiness and heaven. It's time to smile and ignore the insignia of the papal, Roman, pagan empire. 395. Our lives belong to us, our dreams and aspirations belong to us, and are a common good, independent of anyone, not the economy, politicians or the king, only from God. Let's not let freedom and money be stolen from us again. And this is what is being attempted, knowingly and unknowingly. First of all, the careers of politicians by themselves seek to rake in a lot of money for themselves. And secondly, this is still governed by a bad economic system. A bad education of the heart. This has a destabilizing effect. It creates unemployment without the possibility of decent benefits. So thieves are born. It creates a spiral of recession and inflation, which forces people into poverty and inhibits their aspirations. And as we know, lack of aspirations means lack of money. It means lack of investment in culture, science, education, and technology. Because of this, constant depression, constant hand-wringing, dislike of life, dislike of politicians, eternal quarrels. And the circle closes. Today, even the wealthy can't afford to be comfortable, even though they work 10 to 12 hours a day. The system, therefore, does not work. It is necessary to look for better solutions. These new systems must be touched by the hand of selfless love. 396. The full success of freedom and true democracy, leading to the perfection of the human individual and the perfection of society, can be achieved, but on condition that everyone takes the initiative to learn the truths about the world, man, and the infinite deity. This is closely interrelated. The world does not see this, does not see any connection. 397. Modern politicking and even the monarchy, the church moreover, are similarly infected with materialism and lack of good morals. Modern rulers and kings are the exact opposite of wisdom and true love. Positions, backgrounds, careers do not always go hand in hand with splendor of heart, with dignity, romanticism. Jesus' patriotism of love and service to the other. 398. Life is accomplished through the constant creation of matter and consciousness, the ever-increasing tendency to self-realization through useful work and the development of contact with people on the basis of culture, exchange of ideas and sincere friendship. It is worthwhile to realize somehow that only the internal motivation and conviction of the need for self-realization is the driving force for exploring the sorcery of the world, which gives pleasure of existence. And from this pleasure, we swarm to higher thoughts. In this way, we recreate ourselves for eternal life. Providence, overwhelmed by the heat of flowers and the delight of fire. We absorb the expectations dreamed in solemn dreams, tense minds, but sensitive deaf, but sprinkled with lightning bolts. All is clear. This is the beginning of that. 399. Padre Pio told me that there will not be an end of the world for a long time, because souls need to live, even in matter. 400. The problem is that heresy doesn't really exist. The term is purely theological, and the world is not theological. Exploring and playing with life for love and goodness is the essence of life. Heresies are excluded here. Freedom of thought cannot be a heresy or a dogmatic right to specific thinking. If one prefers to play around and with God, as far as one is able to recognize Him in the soul, that is very good. However, thinking cannot be limited in this. Is God a theologian, lawyer, liturgist, dogmatist? If someone thinks so, it means that he insufficiently recognizes the divine right to freedom. We assume in advance, of course, that love does not hover in anger, is patient, gracious, good, etc. Then freedom with God or beside Him is the same and equal for all. God is not an infirmity. Padre Pio's words does not cause limitations. Absolutely. If there are limitations, they were created by the angels, which assumed private heaven's material cosmos that did not work out. In the cosmos, we can even do everything wrong, to the detriment of others. Out of fear and terror, we ourselves try to limit evil, create laws and prisons. Let us note, God does not interfere in any hell. We must mature to be like God, who is free and very good, loving, doing no wrong. He respects the freedom of each of his children, good or bad. He is very straightforward and consistent. He keeps his word that he will not take away anyone's freedom in any way. 401. The world's tranquility depends on the rate of adoption of spiritual and material knowledge. More important, however, is the knowledge of the heart. For without this knowledge, every law can be transgressed and circumvented, even if it is the best in the world. The plan should not only be about the economy and business, but also a plan for a good heart. These two plans should be presented side by side at the same time. This is not about church-based spirituality, but a spirituality based on culture, personal sensitivity to goodness, beauty and harm in the world. What God one professes for the refinement of these two agendas, balanced against each other, is no longer relevant. One can gather all the gods from all over the world and make one of them. Maybe that would be better. Who knows? Including the plan of Jesus, who paid attention mainly to the heart, openness, forgiveness, and love of neighbor. 402. All artificial gods should be excluded from this world, including Jehovah, an alien and forgotten better his brother. Because it is through anthropomorphisms we create for ourselves an imaginary God, a father with a beard, a mother, a partner, a light, a spirit. And it is about him that we all argue unnecessarily. And the worst is when draconian religious laws are created in the name of this imagination. Because, after all, no one believes that God revealed himself directly to someone. There is no such possibility. It's either hubris or a disease. When we push the rushes of human gods out of our minds, maybe the closer one, whom we somehow sense ourselves in our souls, who promises eternal goods and love for free in his wonderful heaven, will come to mind. Eyes and hearing still need faith. Someday, a great thing will probably happen, and there will be an eye-to-eye with God. But already beyond the kolkhoz, the cosmos. 403. If there is no universal science that explains the position of man in the universe, in which he finds himself at birth, no solid life will be possible. Everyone will live a completely different life, open to the sensations of ignorance only. And they are the cause of blindness and waste of the vital particle in us. Life in the cosmos is deliberately concealed by governments and churches that are corrupt. A pure and peaceful soul does not use like crazy the mind and the five senses of the body. She cares more about spiritual rapture and sincere love for all than about manipulation of herself by the outside world. On top of that, controlled by the great priests of this world and beyond. These priests are evil. The soul, breaking away from manipulation, travels more inward, not outward. As a result, it comes to many essential truths. And these truths reveal why there is a lack of love and goodness in the world. When one recognizes who is deliberately influencing the states of our consciousness, and why it will be easier for us to fight this evil. Knowledge and unconditional love overcome all the DNA molecular systems of our physical thinking. Therefore, it is worthwhile to reach the truth, thereby destroying the hidden codes and veils in our body. Love, pleasure, happiness, joy, contentment, prosperity, the pursuit of the original eternity and not the apparent one. All this decodes the mystery of life and takes us to the world of the original fairy tales of happiness, to the real heaven. 404. Spiritual consciousness clothed in a heavenly light body, subtle clothes for him perfectly chosen for a given occasion of rapture. For he knows greater sweetness than the material world outside can give him. Man, even if he were to gather around him all the flowers of the world's senses and derive delights from them, he will be just one petal of them, what he can get in a spiritual fairy tale. That's why it doesn't pay much to enter this world with full consciousness. The sweetness that comes from the inner senses of the soul is not replaceable by any other senses. There are such colors there, such beautiful music, which on earth no one is yet capable of hearing. Padre Pio's words, love, which we have not yet experienced here, but there will be an opportunity someday. We will entertain there all together with the seduction of the most tender, beautiful love. The princesses themselves and the kings themselves. This is not a dream. This is the reality of the spiritual cosmos with God, alive and eternal. Every sound in the ether shines, every movement is limitless, each echo throbs in the distance. Every smile is a charm, every thought of you is a song. Without end, there is an endlessness and a beginning everywhere. Life is alive and eternal. Death turns into immortality. Evil turns into good. There is one truth that overcomes half-truths. Love is a deity imbued with freedom without limits. 405. Is it possible to create something good without the love system? Yes, but it will not have transcendent qualities. Can the world be peaceful, friendly and warm, hospitable and kind to humans and animals without wonderful love? Yes, but it will be short-lived. The privilege of love is peace, cordiality, harmony, permanence, and dreams. Living next to cordial love basically programmatically destroys peace and culture. It is necessary to come to this point in culture so that it is a reflex of love in every game of reality. It should be a way of thinking and reacting, a reflex of spiritual, pleasant orientation. 406. The more people who trust in love in its fullness of colors, the closer it will become to bring people of this format, enamored of love, into government offices, so that they can serve others brilliantly. The world should be ruled by madmen of goodness, understanding, and universal love, not intellectual fanatics, usurpers eager for power, seeking dishonest contacts and the monetary benefits that flow from it. People crazy about selfless love can be completely trusted, even if they were to shout at us, admonish us to convert our hearts to the path of true joy. 407. Relying on democracy alone is not enough to heal the order of things. Democracy is only possible where there is love. Without love, even virtue has no value. Democracy in bad hearts is war on all levels of freedom. This is not the kind of democracy we want. Spiritually minded people are able to use democracy because they add basic wisdom to it. Democracy in itself is a mindless creation, and there is no need to appeal to it as the highest form of progress or culture of social life. The most important thing is the person, not the system. Heart and not ideas, soul and not freedom using evil. Therefore, rights, freedom and civil liberties should be exchanged for brotherhood and love, and any letter of the law to spirituality. This should be learned and expressed in art, science, literature, and even in dance and sports. 408. The noblest assessment of love is the disinterestedness of looking at it. 409. Authentic human joy certainly restrains dictatorial inclinations and is a cure for the human soul. The royal universal law is to be love. It is spread everywhere, regardless of conditions and cosmic ruling, economic or scientific systems. 410. Some people tend to be a bit fanatical and try by force to convince someone of one right truth. They recommend the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, Buddhist writings, or some thoughtful philosophy of their own. That's no way to do it. After all, even Jesus didn't agitate. What for? Those who were interested followed him themselves to learn something interesting. Will it change your daily joys and hopes beyond time? No, so you can't believe anyone, only yourself. Be true to your experience. This is the most important thing. It is wiser to learn from animals. They teach the deepest wisdom, gain knowledge from nature's library. Yes, the mind should be open, listen and analyze imagination. This helps with experience. But one cannot take someone's rationale for granted, even if it was uttered by the Pope himself or the President of the United States. They are only human beings. Bringing the truth to catechism classrooms or Jehovah's Witnesses churches results in entanglement in false concepts of looking at the world. Not only that, there are various saints proclaimed by the church that no saints are to this day, except for a few exceptions such as St. Francis of Assisi, showing the folly of the Church's pomp and wealth, or St. John Bosco, St. Casimir the King, St. Teresa the Great of Avila, and a few others. The rest have not seen heaven to this day. In addition, they preach their information based on fiction. Many of those proclaimed saints are not saints at all and were not. Padre Pio's words. But the Church does what it does, its business in that. The same happens with sects and fanatics of the Bible, a book written by Jews to conquer the whole world with religious ideology. Jesus, when he sees this today, laughs at what they have made of his ideas. By all means, love everyone and witness J and Protestant and Catholic equally. Let them say to themselves that their truths come from God, etc. One cannot give in to this. It is a falsehood, a kind of intellectual manipulation channeling untruths. It is better to become a traveler and personal explorer. This leads to salvation. Jesus was also alone in his philosophy. Even the apostles did not believe him. But let's leave the matters of Jesus. First, let the Church discover the whole truth about him. And then we will see that each of us is the same Jesus. 4:11. If we want to live in stability and peace, we need to start dealing with spiritual matters. Otherwise, we will grow up to spread unrest. Advocates of aggression, lying, and exploitation on their own will never strive for harmony, even if they want it. Commitment to ego will not allow it. That's why spiritual culture, the culture of a good heart, is so important. A culture of forgiveness and looking through the fingers of many misconduct. Love sets an example for even the most ardent. Someday they will remember your kindness, and maybe this memory will be their salvation. It's worth it to be good, because you don't know to whom you will give an example and a sizable boost to the sublime. You don't even know how you will grow in the eyes of God. Before God, every gesture, step made with kindness counts. For each one find justification. Padre Pio's words. Love covers a multitude of sins. Bible. 4:12. The question must be asked, how is it that we possess the consciousness that we think and it never leaves us even for a step? So far, science does not have a single piece of evidence on this subject. Man wonders and perceives that he is thinking and has no idea why he is doing it. He prides himself on why consciousness needs learning, for what purpose he completes and remembers it. Simple questions, but no one knows the answer. We reach out to tradition, to various writings, philosophies, theories to explain the meaning and purpose of life. So far, millions of years have passed and there is still no knowledge on the subject. And man continues to think, feel and know that he is. Questions virtually unanswered. Yes, the theory of creation always settles the matter top down. But how it came to be, no one knows either. The Bible and other writings are very vague sources and scant knowledge of them. They are mainly supported by stories, messages, and fictions. So one is left with faith in the vortex of ignorance. But how about trusting someone? Perhaps he knows something more. There have been those. We can't escape from questions, just as we can't escape from the desire for pleasure, which we also don't actually know. How does it appear in consciousness? How does she do it that we feel pleasure? Zero knowledge. But is it worth knowing this from the other side, since a sensitive love in consciousness fills us and prompts stories of eternal duration? Maybe this is the right direction. 4:13. Love is terribly crazy on earth and in heaven. There is no rule for it and no way to stop and control it. Deity, when it gave us freedom, it knew very well how it is with freedom. Hulk your soul and do what you want. You were not harmed. I apologize for saying deity and not God. It's such a very cultural Sumerian Masonic Jewish term, demeaning the sex of women. And we are not from that culture. It's a foreign concept to us, inhuman and non-divine. 4:14. Jesus is the expression of our aspirations and expectations. It doesn't matter who he was or what he did. What is important is what he meant. That he wanted to help. He wanted to philosophize about the origin and destiny of man. And that is the beautiful thing about this idea. The climate created around him is perfect food for the soul for us. He saves with the idea of happy thoughts, It doesn't matter that churches use his image for their various purposes. The important thing is that it is possible for every person to save his heart completely privately. And this is what Jesus argued. The fact that they actually embellished his image is only better for us. Thanks to this, we have developed an ideal and a goal, and the goal is the heavenly banquet compared by him to a wedding feast. Salvation is nothing more than, as a consequence of this idea, enjoying your whole life here, and someday there. No one wants to work hard and suffer. He wants to create and enjoy. Jesus talked about this to the willing locally. To us, his noble ideas arrived in other centuries, and on top of that, very crafted by the priests of the church and the rulers. Emperor Constantine shit. 4:15. If you already have to sin, then sin with God. He will always come out the lesser of two evils. Padre Pio's words. 4:16. The ability to gather experiences ennobles us and constantly rebuilds the value system of the mind for the heart, bringing aspirations closer to the ideal of perfection. Lessons should be learned from every experience. The greatest significance is wisdom. She plays a key truth in life. She is a sign of diligent, spontaneous work on own, floating in the spell of love and admiration, a curious view of the world. Learning love, its attractive habits. You need to be able to limit yourself, to calm yourself from merit and inappropriate thinking.